Yes, Mr. Bartender, listen here. I ain't here for trouble, so have no fear. One wine, one mead, and one beer.
Hi, welcome to episode 2 of One Wine, One Mead, One Beer. I am Ken Schramm, the owner and head mead maker here at Schramm's Mead in Ferndale, Michigan. And every episode we're going to offer you one wine, one mead, and one beer that we think are incredibly delicious and represent good value or quality to price ratio. Straight to the wine, this is the Hofgut Falkenstein Eucharisberg Riesling Spätlese AP14. And there's a lot of German gobbledygook there, but they also, in German wine naming, they provide you with a lot of information. Eucharisberg is one of the vineyards that the Weber family, Eric and Johannes, tend to in Germany, near Trier. AP14 represents one individual fermentation that was done from one individual vineyard. This is a tremendous expression of German Riesling. It has everything that you would expect from this type of wine, meaning that it's got green apple, Lodi, Granny Smith type character. It's got the citrus fruits that you would expect to smell, and a little bit of pear perhaps. Lemon, lime, and then the tropical fruits that you would expect as well, papaya, lychee. The thing that really marks the Hofgut Falkenstein wines, though, is that they deliver a lot of acidity, sometimes more than 10 grams per liter, which means that they pair beautifully with lots of full-bodied foods. This goes great with the German type cuisine that you would expect, Wiener Schnitzel and a plate full of pommes frites. But it will also work really well with Asian foods like Thai or Indian that have full flavors. And finally, my friend Putnam Weekly believes that Riesling pairs incredibly well with steak, and he's been exploring that at length. This is, for me, one of the wines that represents tremendous value from Germany. It comes in, the Spätlese, I believe, comes in at $28 to $30 a bottle, and the Trockens, some of the earlier, or the cabinets, may be a little less expensive, pardon me, and they have some bottles that become even more expensive, the Ausleses. I think that the aging potential on this could be 10 years or more, but I can't say for sure because I just can't keep my hands off these bottles in my basement. The annual production from the Weber family is also something of a mystery because they don't release their actual production quantities, but if we use some conservative values, we know that they have 9 hectares, and at small yields per acre, it would probably come out to somewhere around 52 to 5,300 cases per year. These are tremendous wines for that price. There are a number of Rieslings on the market that aren't quite as delicious and expressive as this wine is for much higher prices. So if you can find them, you're going to want to snatch them up. You might have to go to winesearcher.com, which is wine-searcher.com, to find them, and you may have to order what's available. I would recommend, no matter whether it's the Trockens or the Cabinets or the Ausleses and Spätleses, all of the wines from this winery are going to represent bottles that are worth your money and worth your time to taste. Now let's take a look at the mead for this episode. The mead for this episode of One Wine, One Mead, and One Beer is Schramm's Mead's The Statement. And this version of the statement is made with Balaton cherries. We make another version of this statement with Hofgut cherries, and we also make one with Charbakes. But this version, the Balaton cherries, were released through the Michigan State University Extension Service Cherry Research Project under the direction of Amy Iazzoni. It's a delicious cherry. It is a Morello type, which means that it has dark skin and dark flesh and very dark juice, which makes it a really picturesque mead in the glass. It has high acidity, and we pair that acidity with honey from Norm Carey, a beekeeper from California, and we use his orange blossom and buy direct. We buy direct from the beekeeper for this, and we buy direct from the families that grow these cherries as well, the Kings and the Smeltzers and the Velikets up in Traverse City. We really think that this represents truth in cherry because it is produced with very traditional winemaking techniques. It's got a 28-day period on the fruit. It gets punch downs for about 8 days. It's completely free run, which means that there's no pressing that ever involves. And pressing can sometimes extract some harsher flavors, some acidity and some tannin from the flesh of the fruit, or the skins. But we don't do any of that. It's all free run. The acidity is still high, though, which creates great aging potential. This mead is one that can go for 10 years. We've been open for 10 years now, and I've had bottles from our first release within the last month or so, and they were outstanding. It could probably go 15 years without a problem. I would say that in terms of food pairings, it's great with pork, just outstanding with pork. Whether that's roast pork or that is barbecued pork, like a pulled pork sandwich, that's a fantastic pairing, as well as things like blue cheese. It also goes well with Michigan salads with a little blue cheese and some cherries, naturally, and it goes really well with dark chocolate too if you're going to consume this for dessert. In terms of quality to price ratio, I'd say it's outstanding. The annual production on this is about, depending on how many cherries we can get, somewhere between 1,200 and 2,400 liters per year. It gets split between the 375s and the 750s, and there's also a few kegs that we put up to offer to on-premise establishments. This represents a really good bargain and something that you can lay down for a long time and enjoy over the course of a maturation that will be really wonderful to examine. The beer for this episode is going to mean that we're going to take a road trip. We're going to go on location and join somebody at a brewery for this, and it's a working brewery, so there's going to be a little brewery noise in the background, and we'll be back with that in just a second. The beer for this episode of One Wine, One Mead, One Beer is Bell's Two-Hearted Ale, pretty much a standard in the craft community, and joining us now is John Mallett, the Vice President of Brewing and Quality for New Belgium for just a few more days.
Yeah, 4 more days before I'm moving out. So,
well,
really pleasure to have you here at the brewery in Comstock.
This is a mecca of a brewery, and this is part of the reason why this beer has won Zymergy's Best Beer of the Year every year. The competition's been held since 2017. It's become pretty legendary in the craft community. My understanding is that this beer was in process, in production a little bit in the 80s, but it really began to hit its regular production about 1997, and you joined the process in 2001.
That's correct, yep. And I came here to Bell's. The facility we're in right now was not existent. I came here to build this facility. We were brewing all of our beer downtown in Kalamazoo. And Two-Hearted was a seasonal beer that was produced down there. Kind of a different process, different brewing systems, very different times. And so over the years, as we've grown and the volume of the brand has grown, certainly the beer has gone with us.
Did this beer change from the time that you showed up to what it's really become over the last few years?
Yeah, absolutely, it's changed. And in some ways it's changing by not changing. So if you think about what we're trying, as brewers, we want to get consistency, and that is consistency of sort of brewing outcomes. What's the flavor in the glass? What does that look like? Thinking about what Two-Hearted shouldn't be overly bitter or whatever else. really dialing in that to say, like, here's our where we need to be shooting, and here's how we get there successfully. So we've certainly made changes over the years in terms of to go into bigger tanks or making sure that it remains yeast positive so that we're able to sustain the growth of this brand.
So when you've made changes, have you done piloting processes to make the changes in this beer?
Yeah, we've done that. We've done that both. We've done that before at scale, and we have a really excellent state-of-the-art pilot brewery here in Comstock. Andy Farrell, our brewmaster, his team runs that system, and we're able to do a lot of interesting things with there. And I'll call out one example of this is that we're at the mercy of the bounty of nature, and as sort of weather and climatic effects shift things, protein levels go up or extract levels go down or colors or these kinds of things. We need to be able to get to those brewing outcomes so that we're able to take in, maybe it's a new barley variety. Can we make the same flavor two-hearted with it? And we're doing a lot of that work in the pilot plant. So
anyone who is responsible for the production of a beer like this then therefore has to be part biochemist, part sanitation expert, part zymologist, and part chef. How does that get reflected when a brew day approaches?
So if I think about, if our brewing outcomes, if we say we get a batch of malt in that the extract in it is lower, we're going to need to be able to assess, like, what is that extract level, and therefore how much more malt do we need to put in to get those same outcomes. There's a lot of math there, so I mean, the number of people who think, I would have studied math, a little more math in high school back when I was doing it. It's brewing at a high level is a math exercise.
Yeah. So can you talk about how this beer affected this facility? Because it went from being a really good beer with a pretty good crowd of fans to becoming a behemoth.
Yeah. I mean, right now, about half the beer that goes out of Bell's is two-hearted. That was not the case when I first joined. It was a seasonal beer, as I said, and Oberon was the 900-pound gorilla. And over the time, by having this beer year-round and such huge interest and acceptance by the beer-loving public, we make more of it. The way that's manifested itself, when we first came here, we were brewing in sort of open-top fermenters, dish-bottom tanks, and we eventually ended up moving over to a pretty interesting design with a very wide aspect ratio, so relatively shallow, very wide, and a pretty open conical bottom to get the flavor effects that we're looking to out of this beer. And so, I mean, going from, at one point, some 60-barrel fermenters to, I think at this point we have 30 at 400 barrels each. It's a lot of tankage.
So is it accurate to say that this beer was responsible for a lot of personal, professional growth of John Mallett and the staff here?
Absolutely. When you're working with beers and trying to solve problems, and growth can be a problem, right? You need to get creative, and working together with the team. We're talking, quality folks and brewing folks and engineers and sort of the procurement team. All of these elements to get the beer in the shape. It's team sport.
Well, John, I want to thank you personally on behalf of everybody that's on the other side of that camera, because, and I know it's a huge team, but the effort of that team has made our lives better. It's made concerts better. It's made basketball games and football games and baseball games better. It's made picnics better. It's made evenings with friends better. And that's something that I know needs to be said more often than it is. So thank you.
Yeah, and I would say again, echoing, it's a team sport, because you think about making sure that this beer is in fresh condition out on the shelves. That's our distribution folks. Those are our field quality folks. Quite frankly, you can ruin a beer in packaging it. It's incredibly high attention to detail that occurs in those packaging functions. Brewers are important, but it's the whole team that makes the beer.
Well, I thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Very grateful. Next up is our quality to price ratio winner for this episode. The QPR winner for this edition of One Wine, One Mead, and One Beer, with apologies to Hofgut Falkenstein and to the great folks at Bell's Brewery, is going to be the statement. The statement represents for us, in fact, a statement of how much cherry character we could deliver to the consumer in a glass. And we think that that represents a wonderful opportunity for investment in a product that should show you how a mead can progress and mature over the course of 2, 5, 10, even 15 years. I love those other two beverages. They are both uniquely delicious, but the versatility of this mead on the table as well represents something of a marvel, if you will. We'll be back with the next edition of One Wine, One Mead, and One Beer in a few weeks, and we're going to add a few elements. We may have another special guest, but in the meantime, I'd like to thank Kristen Deluge for her help with my styling, and would like to thank Reg Smith from the RCS Media Group for his tremendous assistance with the production of this program. We will see you again in a few weeks. Thanks for joining us.